I can say to my new Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra, hey, find a keto-friendly restaurant nearby and text it to Beth and Steve. And it does, without me lifting a finger. So I can get in more squats anywhere I can. 1, 2, 3.
Will that be cash or credit?
Credit. 4.
Galaxy S25 Ultra, the AI companion that does the heavy lifting so you can do you. Get yours at Samsung.com. Compatible with select apps. Requires Google Gemini account. Results may vary based on input. Check responses for accuracy.
Today on CityCast DC, we're talking about why the Purple Line is taking so long. And we're talking about the takeover of DC institutions and whether it's cool for Washington audiences to boo JD Vance. Plus, a story about stew that warmed our hearts. And this week, there is a fourth topic for members only. Is the DMV economy headed for a crater? I'm here with my CityCast colleagues, Julia Karen and Priyanka Tilve. Today is Friday, March 21st. I'm Michael Schaefer, and here's what DC's talking about. Hey, Julia.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, Priyanka.
Hi, I'm so excited about this episode. This is the first time ever in CityCast DC history that we are doing 4 topics on our roundup. And I'm really jazzed about it. It's always really exciting to roll out a new perk for our members.
Yeah, I also feel like it's always hard to narrow stuff down to 3 topics, but now we don't have to do that anymore. We can have 4, and it's totally fine.
So again, we're going to be talking about kind of the DC budget situation, obviously something that's very top of mind for so many folks. And if you want to hear that discussion at the very end of today's episode, you have to become a member. What else do you get as a member, Julia?
You get first access to events from us. So we had a members only event a week or 2 ago. We loved seeing you all. It was awesome. You also get ad-free listening.
You also get a weekly events email that we send out on Monday afternoons that helps you plan ahead for all sorts of interesting stuff coming up. Kayla, our newsletter editor, specially curates that. So, and now we're testing out this 4th topic Friday News Roundup thing. It's a pilot. So if you are already a member, please let us know what you think of it. And if you're not a member, become one so you can listen and give us your advice. You can become a member at membership.citycast.fm. It's $8 a month or $80 a year. So it's a really good deal. And you're supporting local journalism, helping us stick around.
All right. So you guys, Julia, you are a daughter of Maryland. And, for people who have not been following the saga, the Purple Line, it's a light rail going from College Park to Bethesda, or supposed to be going from College Park to Bethesda, because it has taken years and years and years and lawsuits and delays. And why can't we have nice things for these parts of Montgomery and Prince George's County that have kind of basically become urbanized? And it's in the news again this week. What's going on, Julia?
So businesses that are along this Purple Line route. So again, this is the Bethesda to College Park route. They're starting to get antsy. Because this thing was supposed to open up and it was supposed to bring in a whole bunch of new people to buy stuff, frequent the shops, add to the local economy. And that is not happening. Businesses are starting to get tired of it.
Wait, why is it not happening?
So there have been lawsuits. Those got resolved finally. But basically, the 16-mile line, it's 73% complete. It's now scheduled to be open by December 2027. So it's way behind schedule, way behind budget. We have been at this for years now, and the cost to this thing has ballooned to over $10 billion. Like, this is the stuff that drives, people like me insane. It's like, this is a public good that people want, and yet it costs so much money to have happen.
And weirdly, that very subject, is sort of in the air right now, particularly on the left and center left and the whole country. And it makes the Purple Line kind of interesting, even if you never intend to ride it. Like, China has built high-speed rails across the whole country for less in less time. And this is like a pokey little commuter rail line. But, this is sort of the center of the new Ezra Klein, Derek Thompson book, where they're arguing that one of the reasons the country's turned to right-wing politics is that liberal places can't get anything done and, are unable to get housing built and transit built and all the things they claim to like because of the way they are governed. And, I think this is a pretty dismaying example of exactly that phenomenon, right?
Well, I think there is a lot of merit to the argument that they make, but I think we have to point out that in this particular case, for example, part of the problem was that when Larry Hogan Republican governor was at the helm in Maryland, he was actively kind of working against the purple line. So it's like the purple line issue goes beyond just Democratic politics. It's like there were all these lawsuits, there were environmental concerns, there were like people in power actively trying to get rid of the thing. Why was Larry Hogan so against it?
Well, I think there's also, stuff we've talked about a lot on this pod, a kind of culture change has happened in the inner suburbs and in the sort of leafier parts of DC, where often policymakers and certainly younger residents think of these places as urban places, and they want urban place amenities. They want to be able to take transit easily. They want a lot of stores, action, restaurants. And an older generation of people moved in and thought, like, I'm moving to a, well-shaded place with lots of parking. And that's the lifestyle I want. And they feel like the switcheroo has been pulled on them. And it's not fair. And so there's something big, like the Purple Line was a target for lawsuits and opposition by people who didn't like the direction that the inner suburbs were going. And Hogan, the Republican governor of the state, I think was trying to, appeal to that sector of society that doesn't, like those things, that wants, and not all of that sector of society is right wing by any means. So that was an actual divide in a democracy. What is sort of less excusable is that the decision got made, and yet the delays still happen.
Right. It's one of those things where now, the Maryland Department of Transportation and the Purple Line partners, they're offering a new series of grants to small businesses because this is taking so long. So now this is costing more of people's taxpayer dollars to basically pay businesses to not do business. Like that concept's insane to me.
The history of the DC Metro had sort of the same kinds of things. It U Street, people there. I mean, remember we interviewed Virginia Ali from Ben's Chili Bowl on the pod a couple of years ago. And, she said that the 1968 riots were really bad, obviously for U Street, terrible for business, but the metro construction was actually worse because it chewed up the whole block in front of her restaurant for a couple of years. So this idea of like building infrastructure requires inconvenience and dislocation, that is a very legitimate thing, and grants seem like a good way of dealing with it. The problem is when the dislocation is sort of goes on with no particular end in sight.
And it is unfathomable, the fact that it has taken this long to get this show on the road.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about displacement. One thing China does when they build all this stuff is they do not care, right? They get the permitting, it goes in, tough luck, move. Right. And one of the things that Ezra Klein has mentioned is this idea that we have regulations as guardrails for when bad things happen. In theory, environmental regulations are good. We don't want to destroy a bird habitat that happens to be along the route of the Purple Line. In theory, that's a good thing. The problem is that it accidentally builds in scarcity on purpose when we want the opposite, right? So people are using those lawsuits to be actually, we don't want this thing. And it just slows the process down over and over and over again, even after that comment period is done, and even after all the environmental studies are done and all of that.
Yeah, actually, we were talking about the direction that the city is going and the suburbs are going. The Purple Line literally has changed direction over the years, right? They've changed the route because of this feedback and stuff.
Yes. So one of the examples is that it was supposed to go down Sligo Avenue and not Bonifant Street in Silver Spring. That's changed. It's now going down Bonifant Street because of the way that people wanted to reroute it. They didn't want it to go down this set thoroughfare. Because it's changed routes and the direction so many times, it's getting to the point where instead of saying, hey, we have this idea, we've checked all the boxes, this is the straight line and or whatever it's going to go in. Instead, throughout the years, you have, okay, well, we have this challenge. Let's reroute it a little bit. Oh, let's, we have another challenge. Let's modify it this way. It gets to the point where it just the zoning of this is unhinged. And we know that thanks to the Power of Zoning episode that we did, that no zoning at all can be detrimental, in Houston, where they can just build anything writ large wherever they want. But there has to be a middle ground somewhere where it's okay, we have decided to build this thing, and we understand that for some people it's going to be very annoying, but we need to build this thing quickly and efficiently and at a certain cost, not at $10 billion.
So if the binary is we're either China, where there's no democracy and they'll throw down a road or a train wherever the hell they want, whether or not you live there, or America with its like endless pokey inefficiency. That can't be the binary. There has to be another way. So we'll see, Julia. Maybe we should do a CityCast episode when the first train rolls. We can ride together. After the Fact, a podcast by Pew, keeps it real with data-driven insights on today's big issues. No spin, just facts, mixed with stories from experts, policymakers, and people making a difference. Whether you're into the research or the personal stories behind it, we've got you covered. So what are you waiting for? Listen to After the Fact wherever you get your podcasts. Now selling. The Sydney brings 48 boutique condominiums to DC's Union Market District, where modern living meets unbeatable convenience. Tour our 2 new model homes and experience these stunning residences. Choose from 1 bedrooms starting in the low 300s, 1 bedroom plus dens from the low 400s, and 2 bedrooms from the low 500s, plus secure garage parking. Situated on Florida Avenue Northeast, the Sydney offers prime access to H Street's dining, nightlife, and Union Market's artisanal shops, all with easy metro access. Visit thesydneydc.com to schedule your tour today. Another big thing in the news this week, and sort of ongoing, the immediate story was the takeover by DOGE of the United States Institute of Peace. It's a beautiful building right by the State Department, organization mandated by Congress. It was at the center of a legal battle. Can DOGE really take it over? They claim to have fired all the board members except for the 3 who are Trump appointees. Those board members claim to have then fired the president and taken over the place. The organization said nothing doing, this is not legal. And there's been court battles and a legal standoff. And eventually the DOGE people, with the assistance of Metropolitan Police Department of DC, accessed the building and ejected the old leadership. This has become a local governance controversy too. Should MPD have helped them? Apparently the old leadership of U.S. Institute of Peace called the cops thinking they would help them protect their building against what they saw as an illegal attempt to enter it. And then those cops opened the door and DOGE people came in and the leadership were escorted out. The way I see it, I think that we absolutely don't want the cops to be playing judge here, that there's judges who are supposed to play judge. And even if the judges here got it wrong, or if the DOGE people were willfully misinterpreting the law, I don't know, but that's certainly not for like a cop on the ground to adjudicate. But there's a lot of people mad at MPD. They had to sort of release a statement clarifying their actions. What do you guys think?
I think it's so thorny. Like, MPD is just trying to do their job, and they're in this very weird scenario where, like, hypothetically, Trump could order them to do basically anything, right? Like, that is not out of the realm of possibility.
It's legally that they answer to the mayor of the city, but legally the president can, for a short time, take over MPD.
Right. And so when you have that happen, who are you actually taking direction from? Are you taking direction from Mayor Bowser, from Pamela Smith, who's the head of MPD, or are you taking direction from, like, Donald Trump?
Or Elon Musk.
Right.
I think it's the thing that really stood out to me about this story was the way that it was reported, the way that the U.S. Institute of Peace leaders or former leaders, however we want to phrase it, are talking about this makes it sound like it was such a dramatic and like difficult showdown.
Right. They lock themselves in the building. They're like at the armory of the place. And these DOGE people are in like Lincoln Navigators outside. It was cinematic. And, even the judge who ruled against the incumbent U.S. Institute of Peace leadership said she was like terribly offended by the idea that like American citizens would be treated this way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. The USIP chief security officer gave a statement where he said that an FBI agent actually called him on Sunday, telling him that he was subject to an investigation by the Justice Department because DOGE was originally denied access to the building on Friday. And that security officer, Colin O'Brien, said that he was worried that he was going to get home and find FBI agents like waiting outside his door. He like told his wife to lock the doors at home. And then, so that was on Sunday, and then on Monday, all of this stuff goes down at USIP. It just like, there's this culture of fear that we're not used to, and it's alarming to read about, and and like think about the fact that this is happening right down the street.
And I wrote my column this week about the sort of the sense of a class war against Washington, against sort of permanent Washington and the kind of institutions of the place. You know, the Wilson Center, the think tank, was targeted by Trump this week. And obviously Trump made his visit to the Kennedy Center, another kind of like pokey old institution of Washington, where newspapers got audio of the board meeting where they're talking about like, we should have cats and Hello Dolly.
Didn't they have cats in Hello Dolly?
Yes, my
Right.
my mom took my kids to them, and you know, it's not like this is not radical experimental theater. The Kennedy Center's always had kinds of shows that grandmas take their grandkids to. You know, the thing I thought was most interesting at the Kennedy Center, which sort of encapsulates this feeling of city under siege, was this story a week ago of JD Vance going to see a concert there and being lustily booed by the audience, the regular audience in the regular seats, not the boxes. The Trump-appointed leader of the Kennedy Center, Rick Grinnell, put out a letter saying he was terribly embarrassed by this and this was awful and we have to respect diversity.
The irony.
Yes, right.
I thought DEI was dead, guys.
Oh, political diversity is important, Julia.
But I think this is actually like a thing for Washington that that comes up a lot. Like you see some political figure of who you dislike out being a civilian, right? At the grocery store, at a concert with his family, whatever. Should you boo like those people? I feel like there's probably like a fine, like we need like a fine ethicist to adjudicate when and where. What's the argument for it and against it?
I definitely know people who would boo. I think that there is, like I was saying, there's a culture of fear. There's also a culture of frustration in the city right now and like a feeling of helplessness and anger. And I think that especially once one person starts booing, like there's a sense of anonymity and safety in numbers, right? And I think a lot of people would be like, oh yeah, like this is a way for me to get my anger out that feels like it shouldn't have consequences. Like I will boo. Whether they should boo, I'm thinking about it in terms of like, I almost want to have some sort of behavioral psychologist on. Like, has there ever been evidence that like a person, like is JD Vance not going to go back to the Kennedy Center now because he was booed? I don't think so. I think it's just going to make him more defiant. And he has power beyond what the boos can, like I guess the power that he has is well outweighs the feeling of negativity that he possibly got from being booed. So I think he's going to go back. I don't think it hurts him very much. And so what is the point?
So I think the point is that it means you have to face the everyday people every single day and you're a public servant at the end of the day is the goal. You're serving the public. I remember when Brett Kavanaugh got appointed to the Supreme Court, people were protesting outside his place in Chevy Chase. Or I think it was like, I don't remember if it was Meghan McCain or Kellyanne Conway was, yelled at a restaurant publicly because people didn't agree with her and they wanted her to get out. There is a level of celebrity and not controlling the people around you that you do sort of give up when you become one of these upper level figures, right? Like you do give some of that up in order to be a judge on the Supreme Court of the United States. You do give some of that up when you become vice president, right? Like there is a line here and I'm not sure where that line is, but like, yes, I know people who would have booed JD Vance just as people, yelled at Brett Kavanaugh outside of his house and, yelled at Kellyanne Conway and Meghan McCain in restaurants.
Yeah, Julia, I mean, I think the point that you're making about whether or not it's allowed is fair or like whether or not it's moral, like sure, but I'm wondering about whether it's effective. And that's what I'm not necessarily convinced by. Like there's, like Mike was saying earlier, there's right now this kind of like culture clash, this like war on permanent Washington. And I almost wonder if these like somewhat futile actions like booing JD Vance just helps spur along that,
like fuels the fire basically.
And like fuels the fire and like gives them justification for their war on permanent Washington.
So I have written about this a bit and I've sort of got like, I'm going to be like really Jesuitical about it. I think that people should be out, and like anybody in public life should be able to be a civilian sometimes when they're with their family or at the grocery store, something like that. You should not, if you see JD Vance at Whole Foods, do not boo the man, no matter how strongly you feel, because, that's being a civilian. And I think, one of the things about Washington is people kind of pride themselves on not being geeks when they see somebody famous, right? That, like we're accustomed enough to it that we're just not going to react like, oh, look, it's a senator. And I really do think it's like healthy for society for people to be able to be civilians. That said, I think because of what's happened at the Kennedy Center specifically, it's not a civilian visit. This is more akin, because of the takeover, to like, the owner of the football team goes to a game. People are mad at the owner for some reason. They boo him. That seems like it's kind of fair game. And I think given what the Trump administration has done with the Kennedy Center, the people in the crowd that night who are, this was not a radical crowd. This was the symphony, right? These are a lot of people, subscribers, longtime gray-haired, patrons of the Kennedy Center. They have a right to feel disappointed with what's happened to this facility that they are longtime patrons of, and to express that the same way that they might, applaud a famous person in the box. So I feel like it is fair game. But to Priyanka's point of like, is it a good idea? I really don't know. I have two minds. On the one hand, it seems like a very bad idea, right? That you further antagonize people who have a lot of power to damage this institution you care about or to damage the city you care about. And why do it, right? There's a kind of a power of like the silent shunning that could be quite effective. On the other hand, I think people who have tried to make nice on purpose in the name of getting what they want from this particular group, that doesn't seem like it's been particularly effective for people either.
That's true. Nothing seems like it's being effective. I do understand that.
There's something kind of awesome about the idea of like, you really want to show somebody, you just sit on your hands. But I think that's probably a lot to ask for in the America of 2025.
This episode is sponsored by Babbel. Are you holding back on foreign travel plans this year because you're afraid of the language gap? I'm not, because I have Babbel. I'm David Plotz, the CEO of CityCast, and I'm learning Spanish on Babbel, getting ready for a trip to Mexico City. Babbel is the language learning app that gets you talking. Babbel's quick 10-minute lessons, handcrafted by over 200 language experts, get you to begin speaking your new language in 3 weeks or at whatever pace you choose. Babbel's tips and tools are inspired by the real-life stuff you actually need when communicating. With a focus on conversation, you'll be ready to talk wherever you go. Babbel has given me great lessons on getting directions, ordering in a restaurant, and making plans. And of all the things I'm doing in Mexico City, I'm probably most excited about the soccer game we're going to. So I was excited to learn how to cheer from Babbel. That'll be me you'll hear yelling, "Fuerza Tigres! Fuerza Tigres!" With over 16 million subscriptions sold, Babbel's 14 award-winning language courses are backed by a 20-day money-back guarantee. Let's get more of you talking in a new language. Babbel is gifting our listeners 60% off subscriptions at babbel.com/citycast. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/citycast. Spelled BABBEL.com/citycast. Babbel.com/citycast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Are you still quoting 30-year-old movies? Have you said cool beans in the past 90 days? Do you think Discover isn't widely accepted? If this sounds like you, you're stuck in the past. Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. And every time you make a purchase with your card, you automatically earn cash back. Welcome to the now. It pays to Discover. Learn more at discover.com/creditcard. Based on the February 2024 Nielsen report.
We are always looking for stories that actually make us feel good about life right now. Priyanka highlighted on one that was in the Post this week.
Yeah, this was such a joyful story to read. There's this woman in Mount Pleasant. Fun fact, she's actually a freelance audio producer. So we are all kindred spirits with Robin Miniter, and maybe that's why we loved this story so much. Every day in March, she is posting up in Lamont Plaza in Mount Pleasant. That's like the main plaza area in that neighborhood. Every day in March, she is posting up at Lamont Plaza and at noon and handing out a stew, a soup that she is making for folks. She's there from 12 to 1. And I think the thing that I really enjoy about this is that the stew is made from ingredients that she's collecting from neighbors. So every day, people are just giving her a random assortment of vegetables. She actually doesn't say, but if it's what kinds of ingredients, but I'm assuming we're talking vegetables. She's throwing them in her slow cooker the night before at 11:30 p.m. And then it stews overnight. And then the next day at noon, she basically has a picnic with her neighbors. Obviously, this is not sanctioned by the health department. It is a local initiative, eat at your own risk. But I think it's a fun way to bring community together, give back to community, right? Because she's like literally feeding people and have a good time in the middle of the day every single day, which I think we need right now. I think the reason this really spoke to me is that, like we've been speaking about throughout this episode, a lot of people in DC are feeling this kind of sense of helplessness and frustration. And this is just so good-hearted and community-oriented and doable. Like, it feels relatively low effort and low cost and easy. Like, the only aspect of it that is at all difficult is that you have to reliably be there at the same time every day for a month. But all in all, it feels doable. And I found it really inspiring. And it got me to think about, like, are there things that I could be doing that are low key like this?
I mean, I know in my friend group, I'm the friend that cooks. Like, I am similar to Robin, I am the friend who is like, come over, I will cook a thing. And that will make us feel good. That said, I don't know how I feel about people putting random vegetables, like just donating random vegetables to a stew. Like, some of them are probably totally fine, but like, I don't know. Are there things in your guys' pantry that you're like, this would automatically just ruin it for everyone?
The first thing that comes to mind for me is beets. I'm not a fan of beets. I also think that they have such a strong flavor that mixed in with a bunch of other vegetables, it would just overpower and taste too beety. And I just, nope, don't think it would work.
You know, there are so many little examples of this where the common denominator is people trying to break through the enemy and like meet their fellow person, or do something that even connects without talking to their fellow person. I think that's part of, there. Obviously, we all know about little free libraries, but there's like, little free toy libraries, little free, like people putting up other sorts of things like that in the name of like, this, even if I don't actually sit there and eat with the people, this somehow bonds me and connects me to my fellow city dweller. I mean, weirdly, the sense of crisis that a lot of people feel in this moment, where a lot of people are losing their jobs or feeling targeted and stuff, does kind of enforce a bond among people, because you realize, on my block, there's a number of people who've been affected, a number of people who might be affected, and that does forge connections between people who might not have like had any reason to be buddies before that. But I think people would prefer a more happy reason to.
Yeah, I think something that I was just thinking about was like the drum circle in Malcolm X Park that's there every single Sunday. And I mean, it's been there every single Sunday for a chunk of the afternoon, as long as I can remember. I think that's like a really, like, it's such a long-standing version of this that we've maybe come to take it for granted, but maybe leaning into that music, something that I could potentially do. I have made no strides towards this yet, but I spent a lot of my life singing. I was like in a cappella from 6th grade through college. And like, I have a few friends who live in DC who have done a cappella with in the past. And like, what if we just like posted up on a corner, like, I don't know, one day a week and sang for a bit or something, like something small like that. Like, we don't have a lot of buskers in this city.
Priyanka, I say this with love, but my views on a cappella are such, they're sort of like Julia's views on random vegetables in the stew.
Ooh, boy.
Ouch.
Ooh.
Well, we'll stay away from your neighborhood.
Please.
But I don't know, like stuff like that, like little things that spark joy. I will be brainstorming. If anyone listening has ideas, please send them our way. You can email us at dc@citycast.fm. But yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot.
Priyanka, Julia, great to see you guys.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
All right. Hey, so if you are a member, stick around. We're going to talk about the biggest, scariest thing in our DC life right now, which is whether the DMV is headed for disaster in the economy and in the wake of all these cuts. You can become a member at membership.citycast.fm. As Priyanka said, it's only $8 a month or $80 a year. It's a good deal. And that is all for today here on CityCast DC. Our production team this week was Priyanka Tilve, Julia Karen, Ash Durbin, and Selena C.A. Reynolds. Newsletter editor Kayla Cote-Stemmerman wrote our fabulous newsletter, Hey DC, this week, and our hosts are Bridget Todd and me, Michael Schaefer from Politico. Music is by Alex Roldan. If you enjoyed the show, why not think about becoming a member? It's at membership.citycast.fm. We'll be back Monday morning with more news from around the city. Bye.